My parents paid for my twin sister's entire college life while telling me to survive alone. So I worked nonstop, funded my education myself, and walked across the graduation stage in honors regalia, watching their smiles freeze. I, 29 male, have a twin sister named Britney, born 7 minutes apart. She came first, I came second. Those 7 minutes apparently made her the princess and me the family backup plan. Let me give you some background on our family situation so you understand the financial dynamics at play here. My dad, Robert, owns 2 successful auto repair shops in our mid-sized city of about 200,000 people. He's been in business for over 20 years and has a solid reputation in the community. My mom, Patricia, inherited a substantial amount of money when her parents passed away when we were in elementary school, somewhere around $300,000 after taxes and estate costs. We weren't millionaires, but we were definitely upper middle class, the kind of family where money should never have been an issue for either kid. Our house was in one of the nicer neighborhoods. We took family vacations every summer, and both my parents drove late-model luxury cars. There was clearly enough financial resources to support both children equally. Should never have been an issue, but it absolutely was. From the earliest age I can remember, Britney got everything first and everything better. When the new gaming console came out, Britney got it on release day even though she barely played video games and mostly used it to watch Netflix. I got it 6 months later for my birthday, used after she'd gotten bored with it and moved on to something else. When she wanted to take expensive dance lessons at this fancy studio downtown that charged $120 per hour for private instruction, my parents signed her up immediately, without even discussing the cost. When I wanted to join the local Little League baseball team, which cost maybe $200 for the entire season, including equipment, I was told we needed to budget carefully and see how the finances looked after Britney's dance expenses. But the real difference wasn't even about money. It was about attention, validation, and emotional investment. Britney could walk into a room and just exist, and my parents would act like she just performed a miracle. She'd show them a simple drawing she made in kindergarten, stick figures and a house with smoke coming out of the chimney, and they'd practically call the local newspaper to report on her artistic genius. "Oh my goodness, Britney. This is incredible. We need to frame this and put it in the living room. You're so talented." Meanwhile, I'm over here at age 6 building elaborate model airplanes from scratch, getting perfect scores on math tests that were designed for kids 2 grades older, winning spelling bees against 4th and 5th graders. You know what I got for these achievements? That's nice, Ryan. Don't let it go to your head, though. Don't let it go to your head. That became their automatic catchphrase for literally any accomplishment of mine, no matter how significant or age inappropriate. I remember when I was 9 years old, I spent an entire month building this massive model train set in our garage. I'm talking about a whole miniature world with mountains made from papier-mâché, working tunnels with lights, tiny buildings with detailed interiors, functional signals that actually changed colors. I had saved up my allowance money for months to buy all the pieces, and I'd spent hours every day after school working on it. I was so incredibly proud of this creation that I couldn't wait to show my parents. I called them out to the garage, all excited, practically vibrating with anticipation, ready to demonstrate how everything worked together. I had planned this whole presentation where I'd run the trains through different scenarios and explain all the technical details I'd figured out. They came out to the garage, looked at my masterpiece for maybe 90 seconds, said, "Very nice, honey. You're always so good with your hands," and then immediately went back inside to help Britney practice her dance routine for some upcoming recital. That same evening, I overheard them on the phone with my aunt going on and on for 30 minutes about how naturally talented Britney was and how they were seriously considering getting her private coaching from a former professional dancer. My train set, which had taken me a month to build and represented probably 40 hours of careful work, got packed away the following week because we needed the garage space for my dad's new toolbox. That's when the pattern really crystallized in my young mind. Britney was the star of our family story. I was just a supporting character whose job was to make her look better by comparison. Middle school and high school made the favoritism even more glaringly obvious to everyone around us, including teachers, neighbors, and extended family members who started making uncomfortable observations about the different treatment we received. Britney was your stereotypical popular girl, conventionally attractive, socially confident, but academically, let's just say she wasn't exactly college material. She was far more interested in makeup tutorials, celebrity gossip, and social media drama than anything related to actual learning or skill development. But my parents treated every microscopic accomplishment of hers like she just won a Nobel Prize. When she made JV cheerleader sophomore year after 3 tryout attempts, they threw her a celebration party and invited half the neighborhood. When I made varsity debate team and academic decathlon as a freshman, and got selected for the state honors program that only accepted 15 students from our entire region, I got a congratulatory handshake and dinner at the local chain restaurant. The financial disparity during high school became impossible for anyone to ignore. For Britney's 16th birthday, my parents bought her a brand new Honda Accord straight off the dealer lot. Not used, not certified pre-owned, brand spanking new with that new car smell, and 0 miles on the odometer. $38,000 for a girl who had failed her driver's test twice and demonstrated zero responsibility with anything valuable. My 16th birthday, I got a 12-year-old Toyota Camry with 184,000 miles on it that my dad's mechanic friend was getting rid of because it needed $1,500 in repairs that wasn't worth it for him to fix. "It runs great once you get it started," they said cheerfully. "You're so lucky to have your own transportation." The car broke down 6 times in the first year I owned it, leaving me stranded after debate practice, after part-time work, after academic competitions. Each time, my parents would sigh heavily and complain about the expense of getting it towed and repaired, as if my unreliable transportation was somehow my fault. But here's where Britney really began to show her true character and priorities. Junior year, she started dating this college sophomore named Brad, whose family owned a successful landscaping business that serviced most of the upscale neighborhoods in our area. This guy was throwing money around like it was absolutely nothing. Expensive dinners at restaurants I couldn't even afford to look at the menu. Jewelry that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Weekend trips to beach resorts, concert tickets, and very important person sections. My parents thought this relationship was absolutely wonderful. "Britney is so mature for her age," they'd say with genuine pride. "She really knows how to choose quality people with good values and strong family backgrounds." They loved that she was dating someone with money and apparent prospects for the future. Around the same time, I started dating this really sweet, intelligent girl from my advanced placement chemistry class. Sarah was genuinely brilliant, planning to study pre-med in college, volunteered at the local hospital, tutored struggling students for free, came from a working-class family, but had incredible drive and ambition. She was exactly the kind of person who made me want to be better myself. My parents barely acknowledged Sarah's existence when I brought her around. They'd be polite enough during dinner conversations, but completely uninterested in learning anything meaningful about her. No questions about her family background, her academic goals, her interests, her plans for the future. Nothing. She could have been a cardboard cutout for all the attention they paid to her personality or character. The real turning point came when Britney started struggling academically because she was spending literally all her free time with Brad. Instead of studying or doing homework, her grades dropped from mediocre C's to mostly D's with a few F's scattered in there. Instead of making her face natural consequences for her choices, or suggesting that maybe she should spend less time with her boyfriend and more time on schoolwork, my parents immediately hired her a private tutor at $85 per hour. When that tutor quit after a month, because Britney refused to put in any effort and kept canceling sessions to hang out with Brad, they hired a second tutor. When the second one gave up because she was too demanding and unrealistic about what could be accomplished without student participation, they hired a third tutor who specialized in difficult cases. Meanwhile, I was taking 6 advanced placement courses simultaneously, college-level material that was legitimately challenging, even for students who were academically gifted. The workload was intense, the expectations were high, and I was competing against other high-achieving students who were just as motivated as I was. When I mentioned to my parents that I was having trouble with AP Chemistry and AP Physics, and asked if maybe I could get some tutoring help since the concepts were genuinely difficult, and I wanted to maintain my GPA for college scholarships, I was told very firmly, "You're smart, Ryan. You'll figure it out on your own." Besides, those tutors are really expensive, and we're already paying for Britney's help. So, while my sister got unlimited academic support for basic high school classes she was failing due to her own poor choices, I was expected to master college-level material entirely on my own because tutoring was too expensive when it came to my education. Britney ended up graduating with a 2.4 GPA and got accepted to Arizona State University, almost certainly because my parents made a substantial donation to their alumni fund right around the same time her application was being reviewed. I graduated as salutatorian with a 3.98 GPA, scored in the 98th percentile on the SAT, and received early acceptance letters from several prestigious universities, along with partial scholarship offers. Guess whose graduation party had more guests, better food, more elaborate decorations, and cost 3 times as much to throw? Senior year brought the dreaded college planning discussion that I'd been simultaneously anticipating and dreading for months. My parents called us both into my dad's home office for what they formally termed a family financial planning meeting. Both of them were there with notebooks, calculators, and printed spreadsheets. Acting all official and businesslike, they started the conversation by addressing Britney's college plans. Told her not to worry about a single financial aspect of her education. They would cover her full tuition payments, room and board expenses, comprehensive meal plans, sorority fees if she decided to join Greek life, study abroad programs if any interested her, spring break trips with friends, a reliable car for campus transportation, and a generous monthly allowance for personal expenses and social activities. They wanted their princess to have the complete, authentic college experience without any financial stress or worry that might detract from her studies and personal growth. Then they turned to me with completely different energy and expectations. Ryan, you're incredibly intelligent and academically gifted, and we know you'll receive multiple scholarship opportunities. We think you should really focus your college search on institutions that can offer you the most comprehensive financial aid packages available. You might even want to consider starting at community college for your general education requirements to save money on the front end, then transferring to a 4-year university later to complete your degree. I stared at them in complete disbelief, waiting for the punchline that never came. Are you actually serious right now? What do you mean, sweetheart? Mom asked with this perfectly innocent expression that made me want to scream. I got into Northwestern University with a partial merit scholarship, and you're suggesting I should go to community college while Britney gets unlimited funding for Arizona State? Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably and shuffled his papers around. Look, son, the reality is that Britney needs more financial support than you do. She's not as naturally academically gifted as you are. You've always been self-sufficient and capable of figuring things out independently. Exactly how much money are you planning to spend on Britney's college experience? They exchange those uncomfortable glances that parents make when they know they're about to say something that reveals their true priorities. Finally, Dad said approximately $57,000 per year, including tuition, housing, meal plans, transportation, and living expenses. $57,000 per year for 4 years. That's $228,000 they were willing to invest in my sister's extended party experience at a school that basically accepts anyone with a pulse and a check. And what exactly is my allocated budget? I asked, though I was pretty sure I didn't want to hear the answer. Well, you have that partial scholarship that covers most of your tuition costs. The scholarship covers 65% of tuition. What about the remaining 35% of tuition, plus room and board, plus books, plus meal plans, plus everything else that costs money? More uncomfortable silence while they avoided eye contact. We can probably contribute $8,000 to $10,000 per year if you absolutely need it, Mom finally said, as if $10,000 was some kind of generous gesture. $10,000 versus $57,000. My sister, who barely graduated high school, gets nearly $250,000 for college. I get told to be grateful for $10,000 and figure out the rest myself through loans, work-study programs, and whatever scholarships I could manage to earn through my own efforts. That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling and processing the full implications of that conversation, I made a decision that would completely shape the trajectory of the rest of my life. If they wanted to invest everything in Britney and leave me to fend for myself financially, that was fine. I'd show them exactly what I could accomplish without their support, resources, or approval. And maybe someday, when I'd built something significant entirely through my own efforts, they'd realize what a catastrophic mistake they'd made in writing me off. Northwestern University was expensive as heck, but I was absolutely determined to make it work without crawling back to my parents for help. I took out $31,000 in student loans per year to cover what my partial scholarship didn't handle. Worked 25 hours a week in the campus computer lab helping other students with technical problems. Tutored struggling classmates in math and science for $35 an hour. And spent my summers doing unpaid internships that provided valuable experience but zero financial compensation. My daily routine was absolutely brutal by any reasonable standard. Classes from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., work from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., studying and homework until 1 a.m., then getting up at 6:30 a.m. to repeat the cycle. I lived in the cheapest dormitory available on campus, ate ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches for probably 60% of my meals, and hadn't bought new clothes in over 2 years. Every single dollar had to be stretched as far as humanly possible. I bought used textbooks when available, pirated digital copies when I couldn't afford the used ones, and shared books with classmates whenever feasible. I walked everywhere instead of taking campus transportation. I never ate at restaurants, never went to movies, never participated in any social activities that cost money. Meanwhile, Britney was living her absolute best life at Arizona State University. Her Instagram account was a constant stream of pool parties at expensive hotels, dinners at upscale restaurants that charged $50 per entree, shopping halls featuring designer clothes and accessories, and spring break trips to Cancun and Miami with her sorority sisters. My parents were automatically depositing $1,900 per month into her checking account for spending money and miscellaneous expenses. And this was on top of covering all her major costs like tuition, housing, and meal plans. She changed her major 3 times in the first 2 years, apparently unable to decide what she wanted to study. Started in business administration because it seemed practical, switched to communications because business was too math-heavy. Then switched to art history because communications involved too much writing. And finally settled on something called interdisciplinary studies, which is basically academic code for I have no idea what I want to do, but I want to keep partying. The most frustrating part was when she'd call me to complain about her various problems and challenges. "Ryan, I'm so incredibly stressed out. Chad broke up with me over text message, and now I have to find a new date for our formal dance. Plus, I have this really demanding class where the professor actually expects us to read the entire assigned textbook. What class is giving you trouble?" I'd ask, genuinely trying to be supportive. Introduction to Psychology. It's like so much reading. We have to read 2 whole chapters every week, and there's this massive 8-page paper due at the end of the semester. An 8-page paper over the course of an entire semester. I was writing 30-page research papers on advanced economic theory and statistical analysis, often with just 2 weeks to complete them. And she's complaining about 8 pages spread across 4 months. But here's where Britney really demonstrated her true character and value system. During her junior year, she started dating this new guy named Tyler, whose family owned a chain of upscale restaurants across 3 different states. This dude had serious money, like private jet, multiple vacation homes, my family owns a yacht kind of money. Suddenly, Britney's already extravagant lifestyle shifted into complete overdrive. Designer everything from head to toe, weekly spa treatments and professional salon visits, a brand new BMW because her previous car wasn't appropriate for someone in her new social circle. Tyler was paying for everything, and my parents thought this development was absolutely wonderful. "Britney has such excellent judgment when it comes to relationships," Mom would say with genuine admiration. "Tyler comes from such a successful family with strong values. They're actually talking about buying her a condominium near campus so she doesn't have to deal with the inconvenience of sharing space with roommates anymore." A condominium. Tyler's family was going to purchase my sister an actual piece of real estate because she was too refined for standard student housing. Meanwhile, I'm sharing a tiny off-campus apartment with 3 other guys, sleeping on a mattress on the floor because I couldn't afford a bed frame, and considering it a good month when I could afford to buy name-brand peanut butter instead of the generic store brand. By my senior year at Northwestern, something interesting and unexpected had happened. All that relentless financial pressure, all those late nights juggling work and studying, all the stress of making every dollar count and every decision matter, it had transformed me into someone who could identify problems quickly and create effective solutions efficiently. I started noticing how poorly many local businesses in the college town were marketing themselves online. Restaurants with websites that looked like they were designed in 1995. Retail stores with 0 social media presence despite having great products. Service companies that couldn't be found on Google even when people were specifically searching for what they offered. I realized there was a massive opportunity to help these businesses reach more customers and generate more revenue through better digital marketing strategies. Most of them knew they needed help with their online presence, but they couldn't afford the big marketing agencies that charge $10,000 per month for basic services. I started small, offering to redesign websites and manage social media accounts for a few local businesses near campus. I charged reasonable rates that small business owners could actually afford. $500 to build a professional website, $300 per month to manage their social media accounts and online advertising. I delivered outstanding results because I actually cared about their success. Unlike the big agencies that treated small businesses like unimportant clients, my restaurant clients started seeing more customers. My retail clients started getting more online orders. My service company clients started getting more phone calls and appointment requests. Word spread incredibly quickly in the local business community. Business owners started referring me to their friends and colleagues, I went from 1 client to 3 clients to 8 clients to 15 clients, all within the span of 6 months. By graduation, I was running a legitimate digital marketing agency that I'd named Peak Performance Marketing. I had 18 regular clients paying me between $1,200 and $3,800 per month, each for ongoing marketing services. My monthly revenue hit $42,000. After business expenses, I was keeping approximately $28,000 per month in profit. For the first time in my entire life, I had real money. Enough to pay off my student loans immediately, enough to rent a nice apartment in a good neighborhood, enough to buy reliable transportation, enough to start investing and building long-term wealth. Meanwhile, Britney was finishing her 4th year at Arizona State with a degree in interdisciplinary studies and a 2.1 GPA. She'd barely managed to pass her final semester because Tyler's family made a substantial donation to the university's new student recreation center, right around the time her grades were being finalized. At our joint graduation party, yes, even at this point, they made us share a single celebration to save money, despite the fact that I was graduating with honors from a prestigious university while launching a successful business. All the attention kept gravitating toward my accomplishments. Relatives were asking detailed questions about my company. Family friends wanted to know if I could help their own businesses. Even some of my parents' neighbors were requesting my business cards and asking about my services. Britney was visibly annoyed by this shift in attention. She kept trying to redirect conversations to her engagement announcement. Tyler had proposed during their spring break trip with a massive diamond ring that probably cost more than most people's annual salary, and they were planning an elaborate destination wedding at his family's private estate in wine country. I could see the frustration and resentment building in her eyes. She was supposed to be the successful one, the one who'd landed the wealthy husband and secured her financial future through marriage. Her academically gifted but socially awkward younger brother wasn't supposed to be stealing her spotlight with actual business accomplishments and entrepreneurial success. Over the next 3 years, Peak Performance Marketing grew beyond my wildest expectations and most optimistic projections. I hired 12 full-time employees, moved into a real office space in the downtown business district, and started landing major corporate clients that paid premium rates for high-quality work. We were handling comprehensive digital marketing campaigns for regional restaurant chains, retail companies with multiple locations, professional service firms like law offices and medical practices, even some minor celebrities and social media influencers who needed help managing their online presence. My personal income hit 7 figures for the first time when I was 26 years old. I bought a beautiful house in the hills overlooking downtown with panoramic city views. Purchased a Tesla Model X for daily driving and a classic Ford Mustang for weekend enjoyment, and started investing heavily in real estate properties and diversified stock market index funds. My parents suddenly wanted to be deeply involved in my life again, after years of treating my goals and ambitions as unimportant. "We always knew you'd be incredibly successful," they'd say whenever they called, which was now much more frequently than before. "We're so proud of how you turned out. You should definitely bring some of your clients by the auto shops. Maybe we can work out some kind of cross-promotional arrangement that benefits everyone." Right. They were proud of my bank account and business connections, not me as a person, and now they wanted to benefit financially from the success they'd refused to support or even acknowledge during the difficult building phase. Britney's situation was evolving in a completely different direction. She'd married Tyler in a $220,000 wedding ceremony that his family paid for entirely. The event was featured in a regional lifestyle magazine with a 6-page spread, and she spent months talking about how perfect her life had become and how everything was working out exactly as she'd always planned. But things started deteriorating pretty rapidly after the honeymoon phase ended. Tyler turned out to have some serious personal issues that became more apparent once they were living together full-time. He was emotionally controlling and manipulative, had a severe gambling problem that was burning through money at an alarming rate, and was apparently involved in some questionable business dealings that were attracting unwanted attention from federal investigators. Britney started calling me more frequently, usually in tears about something Tyler had done. He lost $45,000 at the casino last weekend and told me it was entirely my fault for being too demanding and creating stress in his life. "Why don't you just leave him?" I'd ask, though I suspected I already knew the answer. "I can't. I don't have any job skills. I don't know how to do anything. I've never even had a real job in my entire life." She was absolutely correct in that assessment. She'd spent her entire adult life being financially supported by someone else. First my parents during college, then Tyler after marriage, She had zero work experience, no marketable skills, no professional network, no financial independence whatsoever. She was completely dependent on a man who was increasingly unstable and irresponsible with money. At the same time, my parents' financial situation was starting to show some concerning cracks. Dad had made the decision to overexpand his auto repair business, taking on substantial debt to open a third location that wasn't performing well due to increased competition and a changing market. Mom's inheritance money was mostly gone, spent on Britney's college years, her wedding, and years of supporting her expensive lifestyle. They were still maintaining their appearances with their large house and luxury vehicles, but I could tell from various comments and observations that they were struggling significantly with the monthly payments and overall financial obligations. I watched all of this unfold from my comfortable position of complete financial independence and business success, but I kept my observations to myself and remained focused on continuing to grow my company and investment portfolio. Last year, everything came crashing down at exactly the same time for everyone in my family except me. Tyler's restaurant business imploded spectacularly when federal investigators discovered he'd been involved in an elaborate money laundering scheme connected to some very dangerous people. He fled to somewhere in South America to avoid prosecution and potential physical harm, leaving Britney with nothing but massive debt obligations and serious legal problems. My parents' financial house of cards completely collapsed around the same time. Dad's third auto shop location failed entirely, dragging down the financial stability of his other two previously successful locations. They defaulted on both their primary mortgage and their home equity line of credit, maxed out 6 different credit cards trying to keep the businesses afloat, and ultimately had to declare personal bankruptcy when the debt became completely unmanageable. They lost their house in foreclosure, had their luxury cars repossessed by the finance companies, and essentially lost everything they'd accumulated over 25 years of marriage and business ownership. Within a span of just 4 months, my entire family went from comfortable upper-middle-class lifestyle to basically destitute and homeless. And suddenly, everyone was looking at me with desperate expectation, as if my success somehow obligated me to rescue them from the consequences of their own poor decisions. The first call came from my mom, and I could hear the desperation and panic in her voice. "Ryan, sweetheart, we know you're doing really well with your business and investments. We were wondering if you might be able to help us out with our temporary financial situation just until we can get back on our feet and figure out a sustainable plan." "What kind of help are we talking about specifically?" "Well, we need somewhere decent to live, and we have all these debt obligations that we're trying to deal with. We were thinking maybe you could loan us enough money to get a reasonable apartment and consolidate our credit card bills. Probably around $160,000 total. On roughly 70% of what they'd spent on Britney's college experience alone, not including her wedding or the years of financial support afterward. I'll need some time to think about that," I told her. Honestly, the next call was from Britney, and she was completely hysterical and barely coherent through her sobbing. "Ryan, I'm absolutely desperate. I don't have anywhere to go. Tyler cleaned out all our joint bank accounts before he disappeared and left me with nothing. I can't even afford to buy groceries. The condominium is being foreclosed on and I'm going to be homeless. Have you thought about getting a job to support yourself?" "I don't know how to get a job. I've never worked before in my life. I don't have any experience or skills that anyone would want to pay for. Please, you're my brother. You have to help me. I'll do absolutely anything." "What about Mom and Dad helping you out? They're completely broke too. You're literally the only person in our family who has any money. Please, I'm begging you with everything I have." Here's the thing that everyone reading this needs to understand clearly. I absolutely could have helped them financially. $160,000 would have been a significant amount of money, but my business was generating enough monthly profit that I could have afforded it without seriously impacting my lifestyle or long-term financial goals. I could have set them up in a nice apartment, helped Britney learn some basic job skills, gotten them back on their feet financially, and probably felt good about myself for being the bigger person who helped his family in their time of desperate need. The question wasn't whether I had the financial capability to help them. The question was whether I had any moral obligation to help them, given how they'd treated me for the previous 29 years of my life. For my entire childhood and young adult life, they had made it crystal clear through their actions and financial decisions that I was the less important child, that Britney was worth investing in while I was expected to figure everything out on my own without support, encouragement, or resources. When I was struggling financially during college, eating ramen noodles for dinner and working 25 hours a week just to afford basic necessities like textbooks and housing, Where was their concern for my well-being? When I was stressed about student loan debt and living in terrible conditions because it was all I could afford, where was their offer to help? They had made their choice about which child deserved support and investment. They had spent literally hundreds of thousands of dollars on Britney's education, lifestyle, and happiness, while telling me to be grateful for minimal assistance and figure out my own path to success. So, when my mom called back 2 weeks later asking for my final decision, here's exactly what I told her. You know what? You were absolutely right all these years. I am smart enough and capable enough to figure things out on my own, and I figured out that I don't owe any of you anything. The silence on the other end of the phone lasted for about 30 seconds before she responded. But Ryan, we're family. We made some mistakes in the past, but we love you and we've always been proud of you. Family. Where was that family loyalty when you spent over $200,000 on Britney while I took out massive student loans? Where was that family love when I was working myself to exhaustion just to afford basic necessities? You made your choice about who was worth investing in. Now you get to live with the consequences of that choice. When my dad called me a few days later, the conversation was even more direct. Son, I know we haven't always made the best parenting decisions. Maybe we did favor Britney too much over the years, but we're drowning financially here. Your mother is working at a department store for $12 an hour. I'm doing maintenance and repair work for a property management company. We're living in a tiny apartment in a rough neighborhood, and we can barely afford groceries. You're the only one who made it out successfully. Dad, I didn't make it out. I was pushed out. There's a significant difference. Please, Ryan, we're not asking for charity or handouts. We'll pay you back with interest. We'll sign legal documents, whatever terms you want to set. Pay me back with what money? Your minimum wage retail jobs. Even if you somehow could eventually pay me back, why should I risk my hard-earned money on people who have consistently proven they make terrible financial decisions? Because we're your family, and families help each other. You're the people who happen to share my genetic material, but you stopped being my family the day you decided I was worth less than Britney. Britney tried a completely different approach when she called me the following week. I'll work for your company. I'll start at entry level and learn everything from the ground up. I'll be the most dedicated employee you've ever had. Britney, you've had 29 years to develop a work ethic and learn useful skills. You chose to be a professional, princess, instead. I'm not running a charity organization for people who thought they were too good to learn how to support themselves. But I'll change. I promise I'll be completely different. I'll work harder than anyone. You're calling me from mom and dad's temporary apartment where you're sleeping on their couch because you have literally nowhere else to go. You're 29 years old, and you've never held a job, never paid a bill, never been responsible for anything meaningful in your entire life. This isn't about changing your attitude. This is about facing reality for the first time. That was 8 months ago. The last I heard through mutual acquaintances, my parents are still living in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in one of the less safe parts of town. Dad is still doing maintenance work for the property management company. Mom is still working retail at the department store. Britney finally managed to find employment as a hostess at a chain restaurant, but she's apparently struggling significantly with the work environment and absolutely hates everything about having to earn her own money.